For the last 15 years, people pretend as if there is no AI, as if there's nothing called neural networks or something, and then magically one day just came out of the forest, and it's like we have AI.
We should recognize in tech and in cybersecurity is especially susceptible to this, that there's a well-defined venture-funded hype cycle for every new technology.
Oftentimes you need to understand, okay, what does my AWS bill look like if I start using really AI in everything? Am I ready for that? Am I ready to pay like $3 million a month? What's going on with that?
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. I am very excited for this episode because we're going to be speaking about the two most important topics in my life. Maybe they're the most two important topics in your life as well. We're going to be speaking all about what should we be talking about when it comes to AI and security. This is a hot topic. There's a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of chaos that's introduced sometimes. My two special guests for this episode are Anirban Banerjee, who is the co-founder and CEO at Riscosity, and also James Berthoty, who is the founder and analyst at Latio Tech. Anirban, James, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be here.
Good to be here.
Good to have you both. Also, big thanks to Riscosity for sponsoring and help putting this one together. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out Riscosity. Go follow their page, but also follow both of these gentlemen's pages, and we will go ahead and kick things off. But first, I think it's important to set the stage, talk a little bit about who you are, where you came from, how you got to the seat. So I'll start with you, Anirban. What is your role as a CEO? I feel like every cybersecurity CEO is a little bit different, but what goes on in your day-to-day at Riscosity?
Oh, it's an exciting role for sure. I'm very happy waking up in the morning and working with my team. My primary job is to enable my team to do great work on a daily basis. Sometimes that means you got to be the janitor. Sometimes that means you got to be the guy signing a check for some product. Sometimes that means you got to be jumping into meetings, working on a PowerPoint, this, that, whatever with your team. But every single aspect is really interesting. It's challenging. It's fast paced, and we have a great team, and I love it.
Love that. Passing over to you, James. Same deal, founder, but also analyst. I feel like that is a unique situation and kind of a job title. So what goes on in your day-to-day?
Yeah, a lot of it is just doing street cred on really trying to communicate clearly what I'm trying to do with Latio, which is a practitioner-driven Gartner of sorts, a practitioner-driven way to compare different tools and really get hands-on insights. I have about 10 years of experience in security engineering, and so really just wanted to bring my perspective to a lot of the tools that are out there, because there's so much marketing noise in cybersecurity that can be hard to tell, like, at the end of the day, like, what does this tool really do when everyone is trying to say, like, we do cloud security? Okay, well, what does that mean? So that's really my whole goal and what I've been up to.
Love it. So let's go ahead and jump right in, because a lot of people are speaking about this space of artificial intelligence. I think there's many different ways to look at AI, especially if you're looking at it from the context of cybersecurity or fintech or health. There's just so many different ways that you could look at it. In my world, AI has been changing my business. I use it all the time for summarization to help me be a little bit faster at digesting data, maybe even sharing information. But would love to hear from you both on what is your current perspective of the state of artificial intelligence, especially when you look at it from the lens of cybersecurity. Let's start with you, Anirban.
Thank you very much. So I have a little bit of a controversial take on what AI looks in the world of cybersecurity. I think at this point of time, we have found some use cases where AI can be very valuable. But truth be told, 90% of the use cases for which AI is being touted is kind of still very nebulous. As an example, there are a couple of, in business, as an example, there are a couple of different drivers why you would use AI. You're using it for cost optimization. You're using it for productivity increase. You're using it for some very high level goals like this that you want to achieve, which makes sense. If you're the reason why you're using AI in cybersecurity is any one of these goals, you are destined to find success if you put in the right amount of work and the right amount of research upfront in order to use it properly. So, unfortunately, 90% of AI stuff, I mean, AI is not new. It used to be called machine learning 2 years ago. It used to be called neural network boosting 2 years ago. It used to be called something else 2 years ago. So, there has to be some amount of balance, and to James's point, and he'll be able to comment very appropriately on this, sifting through the noise is so hard.
Hmm.
What is real and what is not? So, in my opinion, there are some companies and products that are making good use of AI for, again, the right reasons. A lot of them are using AI from, put lipstick on a pig, in a sense, and that's destined to fail. Over to you, James.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree in terms of we should recognize in tech and in cybersecurity is especially susceptible to this, that there's a well-defined venture-funded hype cycle for every new technology. And we're going to see that like there is a lot of money and innovation tied to every new development that everyone's going to race to go and try to achieve immediately. And we just need to recognize and sort of take a skeptical eye to all of that. Like I remember when Web3 was like, whoa, this is a whole new version of web. Like this is going to be insane. And there's a lot of companies where there was some legitimate innovation there, but we can be very quick to see the innovation and miss that there has to be a useful product attached to it. But what I will say, where this is very different from Web3, is like there is a clear benefit to people because like we're using ChatGPT. It has a lot of very quick usage. The key question to me is can this evolve past the summarization kind of stuff?
Hmm.
Because every MVP that I've ever seen from a product is like, look, now it's a chatbot. Now it's a way you can interact with knowledge base articles. But there are a lot of companies betting big on this AI model architecture. And what I worry about is the amount of entropy when you get into a system where you have AI models talking to one another. And you only want a product experience where you can know the outcome of what it's going to be every time. Like if I open a security dashboard and like, whoa, where'd that CVE go that I was looking at 2 days ago? Like now it's gone. The lack of predictability in these systems is the main thing. That as people develop products using them, it's a big bet on the AI model architecture. There's some pros to it. It's a lot faster than trying to code big systems, but it is a gamble. And I mean, we'll just see if it pays off from that end. But either way, we should be skeptical and aware that there is a lot of funding that goes into these hype cycles, and like we should try to be careful about how all in we go on AI for sure.
Is this artificial intelligence that we're dealing with? Anirban, you had a good point and comment that you made that, it's kind of just relabeling phrases and terms that we've already been using and knowing of. Large language models, generative AI is on the newer side to me personally, but would love to hear you all's take on, is this actually new technology?
Yes, arguably, yes, it is new technology. I mean, there are a couple of things over here. One is the scale at which you're operating, right? That's one. Second is the innovation in the type of learning that we are doing. Third is the type of hardware and energy resources that can now be put into solving these types of problems. Previously, it's not that we didn't know about AD stump trees, any kind of all these decision based trees and whatnot, but these were not appropriate for the type of AI that is being done today. So there is definitely innovation in terms of how you are doing things from a mathematical statistical perspective, but also the underlying hardware, the underlying economics of how to actually do this is becoming simpler. So for example, if you look at the situation 10 years ago, having GPUs or specific dedicated hardware that can run AI models on it was very hard to come by or very expensive. Now prices are stabilizing, even though they are expensive. prices are stabilizing and prices are going down. From an energy perspective, we understand much better now how much energy is going to be used in order to perform certain kinds of operations, how what type, and you can do a cost benefit analysis. Oftentimes, in large enterprises, when we jump into these discussions about let's use AI everywhere in whatever we have over here, oftentimes you need to understand, okay, what does my AWS bill look like if I start using really AI in everything? Am I ready for that? Am I ready to pay like $3 million a month? What's going on with that? So thankfully we have reached that stage of maturity where people are starting to ask the questions. They're not there yet, but they're at least cognizant of the fact that it's no longer the wild west. So absolutely new things have come up and the way we are doing things has changed. So definitely there's for positive forward movement in this area.
But passing over to you, James, is this new tech, and you also talked about slapping AI and large language models, GPT, on top of products. What I've been seeing a lot of is companies say that we do AI now by just incorporating Chat GPT. That doesn't necessarily feel like an AI company, but we'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think what this has done is combined LLMs and ML models have become rebranded together as AI. But to Anirban's point, I think they're pretty distinct technologies. Like they're both using models. But the key problem that I saw with every organization before generative AI was that they would build these ML model programs. They would hire multiple PhDs in data science, but that team could never quite ship a product because like customer data and the deviations between environments, between the questions people are asking, between the data sets was always like too wild to really turn it into like a usable feature in a product. And what to me, generative AI as an API from OpenAI and Google and others like has really made clear is like, here's how you can get a full product from a very simple integration point. And so that's the temptation is you can actually finally ship a feature with this new technology. But the people who have like, I've been surprised the amount of total rebranding I've seen from cybersecurity companies around AI, where they're saying that it's like now powering everything they do as AI. I think the nugget of truth is this concept of baselining environments was just starting to catch on. But honestly, it had very mixed results because like trying to baseline a cloud environment is like trying to baseline a data center. And that is like the most complex thing you can do. And so that's the truth there is they were experimenting with baselining and LLMs have turned that into a product. But what I'm afraid of is that combining those things together and say, now we're 100% in on AI, you're getting this like very immature baselining combined with this very mature LLM ability and kind of confusing the two and turning it into a product that might not really be super good for either use case.
AI doesn't necessarily solve every problem. And sometimes it's just a chat bot, but that might not even be necessary. Does this provide value? I think this is probably like it depends answer, just like everything in cyber. But generally, let's kind of like just speak from a general perspective. Do you all see this providing value, providing a little bit of AI in that chat bot on top of everything?
James, why don't you go first?
Sure. Since I'm demoing products, experimenting products every day, there has not been a single example of generative AI that has made me go like, I need this tool now. As far as like the amount of value adds. Now there's not zero value. I have seen some stuff with auto fixing, some stuff with contextual prioritization, some stuff like summarizing low level security operations alerts. Like these are all nice to have features, but like they're not the kind of thing that's going to make it so like, oh, I'm throwing my Splunk away because I've got like AI summaries for my SIM or something. Like we're not seeing like a reinvention of categories around this yet. I think it all is going to come down to that AI agent-based approach to see if that really is what allows 10x development for. Here's the real power of AI, I think, is really small teams can create incredibly competitive products with very little lift to do it. Like that's the actual power, less than like I've integrated it in my product in some way that turns it into like a 10x force multiplier sort of revolutionary product.
I can see that.
One
What about
thing
you,
that I'd
Anirban?
like to add is I agree with James, but here's an example that I use that when anybody calls the USCIS or the IRS or the DMV and you hear press 1 for this, press 2 for this. What do I do? Representative, 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 till I get to an actual person. Why? Why am I doing this? It's because my faith in the automated system has been ground into dust.
Mm.
I want to talk to a person on the other side. Why do I want to talk to a person on the other side, or something that I believe is a person on the other side? Is because one, there is an empathetic connection that I believe is built between the caller and the listener, so that you are sympathizing with my problem and helping me solve it. AI is not there yet. In these kinds of extreme use cases where we are saying, oh, chatbots will kind of help you get the information you want, dry information that you are looking for, what I give you my account ID and you can let me know if my package has been shipped or not, where is it? This is all very, I would say, light context based conversations that you have. AI is already there. AI can do these things, mine through data, find, contextual analysis, all that stuff is done. But whenever we're trying to actually solve a human problem, AI is not really there as yet. It's getting there. Every single version that's coming out is improving by miles. But this is one area that we need to kind of focus on, that if we really want to interact with AI, just like we see in the movies, there has to be a cracking the code of an empathetic connection between the two people, or voices that are talking to each other. I don't know how to solve it. I hope somebody solves it. Maybe it's OpenAI. Who knows?
We're betting on you. We're betting on you. That's why we're all
All
gathered here today, right? It's bet on Riscosity. But in all seriousness, I think that when you look back at when AI really caught fire last year, especially looking at ChatGPT, I don't think security was necessarily looking at it too closely. But this year, I hear more security professionals talking about it, especially CISOs. They're worried but excited. They're worried because of the risks that, putting information in these tools comes with, fine tuning models based off of your company's IP or sensitive data, but also that data being leaked to the world. I think that there's more negative impacts. There's also a lot of positive impacts. And James, you actually alluded to some of them: faster development cycles, being able to ship code or ship products, or even just ship feedback at a much faster pace. Let's look at the pros and cons, especially from the lens of security. What do you both see as like that number one, that guiding star that security practitioners are probably going to fall in love with, but also that big side effect that we haven't necessarily began to fully understand yet?
Yeah, I think in general, I split this into two categories of when we talk about AI security. I split it into DLP, which is data loss prevention, and then like application security. Because at the end of the day, people care about AI security either because they're worried about like the way that if employees are interacting with whatever model, they're worried that they haven't checked the box to say like opt out of training. They're worried that they're using unapproved models that we don't know where the data is going. Like the Hugging Face marketplace is like really where that stuff starts to get kind of iffy. And that's the DLP use case. And in my mind, that comes down to either you're the kind of company that cares about DLP or you're not. The main enforcement of DLP in my mind is legal risk, where you're threatening someone like, hey, if you exfil this data, like we're going to sue the heck out of you and you need to be afraid of that.
Mhm.
Or you're like military, where it's like all of a sudden, okay, well, you're putting your phone in a box, you're going into a closed room that's isolated, like it's full DLP situation. And that's how I think of like the Chat GPT sort of answer, that a lot of CISOs kind of care about that angle. But then the application angle, it's ultimately just about inputs and outputs. And what makes LLM security hard is there's a lot less control currently over the inputs and outputs, especially when you start getting into the scariest thing for security people. I don't think there's a lot of risk in like, I'm just sending these questions to a knowledge base, and that's like the data set. But when the data set becomes like customer information and the LLM is allowed to query whatever it has access to, like that's where you start getting worried about like cross data pollination, like data leakage from one customer to another. Like there are a lot of concerns around it. But I think RAG, which is the ability to go and get some of that data, is still very early. And so
Mhm.
I think that's why it hasn't fully materialized yet. But I think that's going to be the long term. Like I think every company will have some kind of LLM portion of their product or some utilization of it. And that the opportunity is like, how do we secure that and provide visibility into that? I think is probably the number one like long term concern that people are going to have.
Anirban, I'm going to flip the question a little bit on you because you're providing a value and a service, a products, a solution to cybersecurity practitioners. And I would imagine that AI is very important, right? AI can be very important, especially for speeding up your workflow and your workforce, like James was mentioning. What areas of AI are exciting you from a business perspective? And also give the audience a little bit of a rundown as to some of the challenges and opportunities that Riscosity is helping security practitioners with.
Absolutely. So AI, essentially, some of the challenge areas for AI, they, as James said, they revolve primarily around the use of data and what is being done after that data is being analyzed. So if we break this in two parts, what data are you looking at? What data is being fed into the model? And again, it's inputs and outputs that we are looking at. But oftentimes the problem is not that the data cannot be sanitized or anything of that sort. The problem is oftentimes the entire AI landscape is pictured or painted as just download something off the internet. It'll magically work on an AWS server. Bing bong, bing bing, and you're the god of AI. Doesn't work. Nothing works that way, right? Any vendor comes to you and says that I have this like magic sprinkles again, and you just one click solution, the easy button. The moment you hear easy button, just please run away, because
Mhm.
nothing is as easy as an one click easy button. The problem with AI is it's been painted like that, and the downside of that is companies that may not have sufficiently trained teams to do the right job to prevent the garbage in garbage out problem oftentimes are putting data that is customer related into these systems. That is one of the problems that I see, where the right amount of training or the right amount of understanding is not there from the get go. And that's okay, because this is the beginning stages of this type of technology. We're not 7 years down the line. Right. So it's not evolved yet. It needs some time to mature. This happens with every type of product or solution. So this is one challenge that I see, that oftentimes people unknowingly are working with data that can be considered a little bit radioactive, and
Mm.
they might not realize. The secondary aspect of this is, who said the data is radioactive? GRC or ESG or some other policies that are there in your company, right? But the bigger problem is that these policies have never actually been communicated down all the way to the bottom of the tree. The policies at the two levels high on the hierarchy of the tree, the nodes on the tree don't even know what ESG are we talking about, what data retention policy are we talking about, what data sovereignty issues are we talking about. I can't be held liable for something that I don't have any information about. So
Right.
I'm trying my best, right, to do things. So these are practical issues that are coming up now. Given these practical issues are coming up, what is the implication? The implication is that sometimes customer data, financial data, sensitive data is being put into the models. That's not necessarily a bad thing. As James said, as long as you can control what happens after the model is being deployed and being used appropriately, the blast radius, even if something goes sideways, is okay, can be manageable. But people don't oftentimes have the best cyber hygiene to make sure that the blast radius is actually controllable. So for us, the biggest opportunity that we see is helping people use AI, helping people understand what data should or should not go into training this AI. And if things go sideways, have a partner or a product or a service or something in place that will help you manage the blast radius. Because truth be told, just like I said to say to people that a data breach is going to happen. It's not a question of if it's going to happen. It's a question of when, how big, what will the insurance check look like.
Mm.
Similar kind of an issue with AI. Something is going to happen. We don't know exactly how big is it going to be, but you should have at least some guardrails in place to say, I've at least thought about it. I have something in there in terms of a soft landing over there. That's what we try to help customers with.
I bet. We did a lot of framing. We spoke about kind of the current state of GRC. We also shared our experiences with AI from a high level, also a little bit about security. So I'm going to reframe the question again now that we've got some of the initial work out the way. This live stream has a title. So what should we all be talking about when it comes to AI and security? I'll start with you, James.
Yeah, I think everything follows in security this trend of visibility to detection to response. And right now, it's really just focused on the very basic visibility is what we need to get. If you're first of all, be realistic about how much you care about the DLP use case. For most like ChatGPT type stuff, there's an opt out box that you can just tell people, hey, make sure you check this box. You probably don't need to go more overboard than that. But from a application perspective, it's really about understanding like what is the product team's goals with this, what data is it going to be connecting to, how are we training it, what model are we using, just very basic information to try to get a diagram together to try to get some basic understanding foot in the door to the conversation. And then over time we can worry about some of the more advanced security stuff like mitigating the OWASP top 10 on LLMs and mitigating the specific, like what do we do about prompt injections, what do we do about biases, what do we do about model poisoning, model stealing. Like those are all things that we can worry about. You can't worry about those things until you have some idea of how your application's working and using it. So again, it always comes back to like the developer relationships and getting security in the door early to these conversations so that it's not like this, oh shoot, we used this crazy model we found on some website somewhere and like now we're re-architecting everything after the fact.
What about you, Anirban?
I think, James hit the nail 100% on the head. I mean, the only thing I would add is when we talk about AI, let's also keep in mind the process, because the way I think about it is in any security program, for it to be successful, it's always process, people, product. If you turn the pyramid the other way around, product, people, process, doesn't work that way. Products are great once you understand what you want to do with them. If you want to protect the type of data going to them, I don't want PII going to the model that I'm going to train my AI on. Great. Define that policy first, right? Then a product like Riscosity or whatever it is that you want to use can help. Unless you define the policy first, unless you have buy-in from the organization to give you the time and the space to think about what the right thing is, there is no point in buying products. You will not succeed, unfortunately. It'll just be a mishmash of things and praying to God that, oh, I hope this thing works. So that's the only thing I would add on top, that I think you need organizational buy-in, because this is a relatively new thing that we are dealing with, that there has to be enough time and space given to people to understand and think about what are the right things that we need to do from a security and cyber hygiene perspective before you jump into buying products and let's just do this thing.
I really like that. I really like both of you all's answer. And I would agree with that, because I think that when we look at this space of AI and security, we should be talking about the technology and how it works. What would those benefits be? I think when ChatGPT came out, we got a little ahead of ourselves. We just jumped right in. We saw general purpose tool, and it does a decent job of helping in a general way. But when you start to get into the specifics and try to take something from 1 to 100, I think GPT did a great job of going 0 to 1 on something that you're not necessarily familiar with. But going from 1 to 100, that's a whole different can of worms. And starting that conversation, speaking to someone like James, an analyst, hey, we need to get an analyst on the line to see how can we think about these technologies? How does it work? And then speak to someone like Riscosity. Okay, we understand how it works from a high level. What could your solution do to help us? And you had that pyramid perfect. I, as a technologist, try to flip that pyramid upside down and I always get burnt. You got to put the people first in your processes, and then the product or technology will follow.
Yeah. The thing I would add on the technologies in the space, because it is so new that there are a lot of, like, nobody really knows what the right answer, like there's proxy based approaches for network visibility into traffic and firewalling. There's CLI based approaches. There's SDKs that are available. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can go about trying to solve this use case. And so I would just be really focused on what the actual outcome you're trying to drive towards is, and try to pick a solution that's more general than specific, because we honestly don't know. There's no agreed upon, like, here's the right way to do this. We know generally what some early risks are, but at the end of the day, we don't know until there's some more concrete attacks that are out there. We won't know what the best technological solve is for some of them because it's evolving so quickly, the different use cases that people are having.
Riscosity was kind enough to share a resource for anyone that wants to get better at this thing of governance, audit, risk. They have a report for you. You can find it by going to this link. We'll also drop it into the LinkedIn chat for you to check out. And wanted to ask you all one final question as well. You know, speaking of getting one step better, how can we do that, especially looking at the world of AI and GRC? What's one piece of advice that you'd have for anyone that is embarking on a journey to be more collaborative, to be more productive, to maybe not work till 11 p.m. on Fridays? We'll start with you, James. What's that one piece of advice that you give anyone?
Yeah, the advice I always give is to open one pull request, which is a weird piece of advice, but the goal to it is a lot of times security people want to try to tell people what to do without having any ability to empathize with the processes. And until you can end-to-end empathize, that doesn't mean you have to like become the best person at deploying code or like now you're a developer, but it's like you just need to be able to get your hands dirty to like, oh, this is probably really hard because we lack documentation here, or because like this was really unclear, or the DevOps team has messed this thing up and so it makes things difficult. Like it's that ability to empathize with people, and you can't really do that unless you try to get your hands a little bit dirty with it directly. And so that's really my approach, is like just opening one pull request goes so far to showing like developers and different teams. And for other teams, it applies, right, to sales, like go on a sales call, shadow a sales call. For customer success, like go on a touch base with the customer, like just do one or two things to empathize with people to drive the change that you're trying to accomplish. Love
that. One thing. And I really love the tribal knowledge aspect too. Like have a call with the team, especially the sales team. The sales team is going to teach you how the business makes money. They're going to show you actually. So I really like that. What about you, Anirban? What's that one piece of advice that you give anybody to be one step better at this world of AI and GRC?
I believe that given the state of AI and the state of maturity that we have, you cannot over communicate. So go in on making sure, even if you need multiple meetings, multiple, Google Docs that you collaborate on, whatever it is, Jamboards, whatever it is, you cannot over communicate more. If you communicate, if you take the, if you run with it and you make sure that everybody is in the loop, whoever is a stakeholder is in the loop, they might not respond to it all the time. That's fine. But at least there is an ability for anybody to come in and check up on what is the status, where are we at, is there documentation or not, who made this decision, why was decision made. So documentation, communication is super important in these types of projects. And truth be told, if you go in gangbusters on communication, you'll be happy as a hog in Texas mud. So hey, that's my 2 cents on it.
Love that. Love that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for spending some time out of your busy day to jump on with us, speak to our audience. Also, big thank you to the audience for hanging with us. Also, for anyone that hasn't done so already, you got to check out Riscosity. You got to check out what Anirban and the team are building over there. When I first got introduced to the team, I met one of the marketing team members, Chara, and her experience of cyber was very impressive. I was, usually marketing people, they're asking me, well, what should we speak about? And Chara and the marketing team had a lot of ideas on where we could take this conversation, and you two just made it all the better. So I really appreciate it. Thank you again, and check out Riscosity. And with that, we will see everyone next time.